Welcome to Creative Caregiving and Beyond. More and more people are having to become caregivers for their elderly loved ones, and navigating this journey can be really difficult. This podcast will provide guidance and give practical tips for your family. Your host is Wendy Whiteman, elder law attorney, author, speaker, and leading insight advisor in senior protocol and senior lifestyle trends. Know that you are not alone in getting the help that you need. Let's get started. And here's Wendy.
Welcome to another episode of Creative Caregiving and Beyond, where we cover all things elder. And today we have a special guest. We have two guests, actually, from Gimme a Break. It's a great nonprofit that focuses on caregiving and caregiving resources and just making sure caregivers are refreshed. And I can relate to that. That's exactly what I need as well. So we have Savy, Makalena. She's the CEO and founder of Gimme a Break. Savy, welcome.
Hi, aloha.
Aloha. And then also we have Christy Pickrell. She's the Chief Financial Officer of Gimme a Break.
Hi.
Welcome, Christy.
Thank you, Wendy.
Yes. It's so great to have you guys here. And we'll go ahead and get started. I want to ask you, Savy, to give us an idea. How did you decide to start your nonprofit, Gimme a Break?
Wow. You want the Reader's Digest version? I'll give you that. Basically, it comes from my own experience of caregiving. So last 10 years intensely caring for both my parents, but pretty much been a caregiver my whole life. Started taking care of my mother at a very young age. She was a Japanese national who eventually became an American citizen. However, she couldn't speak the language very well. And so because of that, I became her translator for everything and always grew up looking out for her. And then more recently, when she was diagnosed with dementia about 10 years ago, she had a mini stroke that accelerated her condition. Then my father, a week later, fell down a full flight of stairs, about 15 stairs, broke 3 ribs, and was in bed. So I immediately became a caregiver. That journey was one of the toughest things I've ever done in my life, and I've done a lot of tough things. And when my father passed away a year and a half later, then my mother, who's now in her final stage of dementia, when I first placed her, I had promised her, like everybody else, I won't put you in a home. And of course, she got to the level of care that I could no longer give her without causing her harm. And I had no choice. I needed to place her somewhere that she could get the kind of care she needed and that we could afford. It was costing me way too much money to bring in nurses and CNAs at $30,000 a month. You know, I couldn't sustain that at all. And so getting her into a wonderful foster care home really helped. But it took its toll on me, and I became depressed. I went into about 9 months of depression. I was suicidal. I was overweight. I was exhausted. I had cut myself off and had been isolated for so long that I didn't even remember who I knew. And I kind of snapped out of it after 9 months, and I realized this is ridiculous. No caregiver should ever have to feel this way. And I started Gimme a Break. And so I say I went into 9 months of depression and I gave birth to a mission.
Wow.
And that's where Gimme a Break came from. And I realized caregivers need support. So I thought about all the ways that I needed support and put that into what we do with Gimme a Break.
That's amazing. And I think you just really touched on just about every point that a caregiver goes through and the stages. And so you're absolutely relatable. And what a wonderful, wonderful idea to help reach out and help other caregivers. Now Christy, tell us about your experience and what inspired you to come along and work with Savy and Gimme a Break.
I, too, at a young age, was a caregiver, caring for my grandmother who was bedridden. And I met Savy through Our Little Peace of Mind and on the Caring Caregiver show. And she inspired me so much. It was just the whole mission of Gimme a Break. Yes. I know how I felt as a teenager caring for my grandmother, and I know how I feel now as an adult caring for an adult autistic son.
Okay.
And it is very isolating. And there's so many resources out there for our loved ones, but there's nothing quite like Gimme a Break for us. And just Savy was so inspiring, and it just melted my heart.
Oh, awesome. Well, I know you guys make a great team, and you mentioned that there's so many resources out there for caregivers. What makes the difference
Well, there's
with Gimme a Break?
resources for the caree, but there's just very few for the caregiver. And that's where Gimme a Break focuses on caregiver wellness. I know we talk about it, Savy talks about it, surviving caregiving, but thriving. And so that's kind of Gimme a Break's mission, is to get caregivers through the journey. And a new piece is also preparing your loved ones for your caregiving journey, for how you want to be cared for. So that's something new we're looking into, and Savy can speak more to that.
Yeah.
But just helping caregivers not be that statistic.
Exactly. Savy, what type of programs do you guys have in place right now? And now you're based in Hawaii, in Honolulu.
Correct. Yes. However, we have aided caregivers in many locations around the globe.
Okay.
And I just want to really quickly talk about that statistic that Christy just mentioned. And it's basically that 50% of caregivers will not survive the one they're caring for. And that's our national statistic right now.
Wow.
50%. So if you know 5 caregivers, 2 of them may not survive the journey. And that statistic goes up even higher if you're 70 and older. So it goes up to 70%. So those who are caring for someone over 70 are the highest at risk. And because of that, we really need to be more concentrated on how can we support, how can we, build up, how can we inspire those that are going through that. So with Gimme a Break, we are not providing caregiving. We are here to care for the caregiver. We're here to help the caregiver to see the importance that they need to put themselves first. They need to put their wellness first. They need to or they're not going to survive, right? So many people talk about this. You go on the plane and they tell you, here are the lights, right? Here are the lights. And then they say, in case of an emergency, that oxygen mask is going to drop down. Right. And you have to put on yours first. Yeah. Because if not, then you're not breathing and then they're not breathing. Yeah. And caregiving is very much like that, except that we never do that. We always put ourselves last. We take care of everybody. And I always say it's the classic mom in the kitchen and everybody else eats and then mom eats last. And we can't do that. We have to change that narrative. We have to put our wellness and our self-care first so that we can continue to be there to care for others.
Yeah. And I totally
I'm sorry. And then to add to that, yes, and to add to that, so what do we do? So we, of course, support caregivers. We have weekly online support sessions.
Okay.
And we can help connect caregivers to resources. We have an online magazine that is written for caregivers, by caregivers, with a caregiver's point of view that helps educate. We also advocate for caregivers. So I go to the Caregiver Summit, the National Caregiver Summit in Washington, D.C. each year and go up to Capitol Hill and talk to our legislators. And caregivers are sort of that invisible, non-existent demographic. And we need to create awareness. We need to, say, we are here, we are here, we are here. And so that we can get all of the things that caregivers need in order to survive this journey. And one day, when all of us need care, they'll still be caregivers.
That's true. That is so true. And, one of the points you made was that, and I'm guilty of this too with my mom and just managing her. And I have helped with caregivers, but you're right, pulling away to have time for self-care. And What advice would you give a caregiver to pull away when you're in the middle of a storm? And how do you do that when there's no one to take your place and there's no one to, what would you suggest?
So we go from calm to chaos, right? Our life was wonderful. We built our whole lives up and it's created this wonderful world that we live in.
Yes.
And then we go right into chaos like a smack in the face, and we're in caregiving. And so we never plan that. We never think about it. It ends up happening. So how can we change that? Well, what we have to do is we have to take and assess our moment. And sometimes it means standing just in a different corner of the room for just 5 minutes to step back out of it, just step under a tree like you would in a storm, and it's raining and the wind's blowing, you're going to find cover. And so sometimes in caregiving, we think, I don't have time, but you have a moment. So one of the things that we do is we teach caregivers to practice mindful moments, to practice their caregiving in a quick moment. How can you just take a breath that's meaningful? How can you do a 30-second meditation? How can you get out of that fight or flight mode?
Right.
And by practicing a simple 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 exercise. And so many ways that we help caregivers, and we do this a lot in our outreach, but we especially in our support sessions, where last night in our support session, we talked all about our mental health and how we can take that moment. In fact, that's ironic that this comes up. So a lot of times caregivers think, well, I need an hour for self-care. I have to go to the gym. I need to get a mani-pedi. And you can plan for those. Sure, absolutely. But every day, if you don't take a minute here or a minute there or 5 minutes here, you're not going to make it. You may only be getting 2 hours of sleep, but if you can take a 5-minute break in the day, a few times a day, that'll make all the difference in the world, right? I know you haven't washed your hair in 2 weeks or 3 weeks, but and you look just horrible and you've gained weight, but if you start slowly, that's the key. That really is the key. Just take a moment to breathe. I think caregiving is all about how long can you hold your breath, right?
That's so true. Yes, yes. Well, I love what you just said, the phrase, I don't have time, but you have a moment. And Christy, I know you can relate to that too.
Oh, yeah. And working with Gimme a Break, Savy has taught me, and Gimme a Break has taught me through the support sessions and just through the outreach to take a moment, to really just breathe. Take that deep breath. One of my favorite series that Savy does in the support sessions is take a pause. And taking that pause is something you have to learn to do as a caregiver. You really, it starts out as a conscious effort. And, taking that conscious effort for you is so important as a caregiver.
Thank you, thank you. I know you can relate to that. And Savy, let me ask you this. You mentioned your outreach programs. How are you conducting those? Are those video? Can anyone access those? How does that work?
Yes, absolutely. And one of the outreach that we do is what Christy had just mentioned too, which is the PAUSE. It's an acronym, PAUSE. And so that acronym helps you, once you go through this 10-part series, it kind of helps you to understand when to take a pause and when to recognize that you even need one. Right. I think that's the hardest part for a caregiver is you never recognize that you actually need to take a pause.
Right. Exactly.
Take a chill here. You're a little out of control and you just go. And so it's a great series. Many of the series that we do are all from my own experience and research that I did to help caregivers from their point of view. Right. I wish I had this when I was going through it. And so that's where they come from. But we have several outreach presentations that you can go to our YouTube channel, of course, where you can just click on the outreach presentations and see most of those that are recorded. We do them online. And then we have several events throughout the year. So, maybe on your next vacation to Hawaii around it. And one day we'll be doing them in Houston as well. but we do our caregiver retreat yearly, which is an amazing retreat. All of these are free to caregivers. We're an all volunteer organization, and so we're dependent on donations, and we're dependent on sponsors. We don't have federal funding.
Okay.
And we've managed to keep going this long because of what the work that we do is appreciated, and that's truly an honor. In fact, our retreat is usually around 40 or 50 caregivers that we get together for the day in some beautiful spot here. We're in a botanical garden this year, which is amazing. Waterfalls, the whole Hawaii thing. It's amazing.
Yes,
And
yes.
so they get a full day of just pampering, education, connecting with community, and doing those kind of things. You walk away going, I got this. I can
Yes,
do this.
yes.
And if we do that to one caregiver, then we've done our job. We also have our Hawaii Caregivers Expo, which is coming up this month on the 22nd. So if anyone's planning to leave for spring break and come to Hawaii, please do. And come to our Hawaii Caregivers Expo, stop by for a little bit. And that connects caregivers to resources. And several other. We have our Caregiver of the Year contest. You don't have to live in Hawaii for that. It's all online. You will miss the gala, but you can definitely share your story. And sharing your story is important because the world needs to hear the caregiving stories.
That
Our
is so true.
stories are what matter.
That is so true. And one of the things you were talking about, I totally agree with. Many times even the caregiver's own family, they don't really realize what you're going through. It's something, I can attest to this as well. It's something, unless you go through it, you don't understand it. I mean, I've done some tough things in my life too, but nothing like this. And I've witnessed people, clients, as well as friends who are pretty tough people as well, that have been brought to their knees. So I thank you guys for just having this organization, and would you recommend that? I mean, how do you delicately reach out to other family members or friends for help? I mean, I know most caregivers are sometimes you're thinking, I'm alone in this situation. And they didn't offer to help, so they're not going to help. So what would you guys recommend?
Go ahead, Christy.
Go ahead, yeah, Christy.
With me, it took getting involved with Savy to realize how much I did need the break.
Okay.
And so, as an outsider looking in, offer that break. Offer that 5-second breathing. Just off, bring awareness to it.
Yeah.
I know Savy brought it to me, brought that awareness to me. And so that's why I am so excited about Gimme a Break and what the future holds for
Right.
Gimme a Break.
Right. Right.
So that's a twofold thing, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So on the one side, if you are a family member, don't just offer, but show up. Just
Got it.
show up. Don't wait to be invited. Don't even, just barge right
Love
on
that.
in.
Yes.
Right? And
yes.
just get in there. And even if it's for a minute or an hour or a day, just barge on in there. Right? And so don't wait to be asked. So that would be the thing I would say to any family member. Stop. Well, she hasn't asked for anything. No. And that's the second part. The second part is caregivers, we're superheroes in our minds, right? We're not,
Avengers,
we wear
right?
capes, but I think we put them over our head as a hood. And so, we're not necessarily, we think we've got this. We think we can spin the planet like Superman, right? And we think we've got this. But, our carey becomes our kryptonite.
Right.
And it wears us down. And so we have to take a step back, like I said, and learn to accept. Learn to accept that it's okay to ask for help, that you're not a failure, that you can do this, yes, but you can do it better if you get people involved. And again, we have a whole presentation that we do called Letting Go of Guilt. And so our Letting Go of Guilt series helps you to get through that. And by the end of the series, hopefully you have a different perspective about accepting and actually taking control of the caregiving journey. I get caregivers to understand that you're the CEO of this journey. You're not a secondary person that's washing the dishes and cleaning the bed sheets.
Right,
You are
right.
actually in charge of this caregiving journey. You're the CEO. How would a CEO react to employees that aren't participating? So it changes your perspective about caregiving, and then everyone survives. And even the caree is better off for it because they're going to get better care.
That's so true. And you're right. You have to be jolted out of it because I think sometimes you're in such a trance, and I've been there too, checking the box every day, and sometimes you don't get a chance to even know where the box is. You're reacting, and just to make sure everything gets done for the person, your loved one, and your family, if you have a family. I was just looking at an article last night. We had a video conference with a group about the sandwich generation, and I'm a part of that, and I didn't know what that was until someone told me. Like you're saying, it's like, well, Wendy, you have a child in school at the time, and you're taking care of your mom. So you're doing you've got your family and a parent that you're taking care of, and it's a hard thing. It's a really hard thing. And so
Yeah, I think what people don't realize, and I say this all the time, that everyone's a caregiver, right? This is a Rosalind Carter quote, everyone is a caregiver. And I think that no one realizes that they are, was what I would add to that. So people, pets, and plants is what I say. If you care, you're a caregiver. And if you're caring, if somebody's life is in your care, then you're a caregiver. So moms are our very first caregiver. And so a lot of moms don't associate the fact that they could suffer from caregiver burnout, which, by the way, is now a true medical condition.
Really?
So they could be suffering from caregiver burnout, but then now they're sandwiched between somebody else. Yeah. So that means that they're caring times 2, which puts them twice the risk. So if you double that risk percentage I told you earlier, which was 50%, to do double that, then that means you have 100% chance that you're not going to survive your journey.
Oh no, don't tell me that now.
Right.
Make some
so you have
quick.
to change what you're doing, right? The only way to change that statistic is to change and control what's yours to control. And so recognizing what's yours to control. And one of the first things is, what are you doing about your wellness?
Okay. Well, I'm turning myself in. That's it. I'm convinced. I'm totally convinced. I'm going to get on these videos, and I'm going to tell everyone else I know as a caregiver to definitely join me. And Christy, you've been there as a sandwich generation as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
I started as a teenager. I have children. I've cared for grandparents. I've, it's all at the same time. Yeah. Which is crazy. But one of the things I wanted to say was, you asked what we could do, and I think, Wendy, you having us on this show and highlighting what we're doing is huge, because then we can reach more caregivers. And I thank you for that.
Oh, thank you guys for the awareness. I mean, I'm learning as I'm sitting here, and I'm so eager to become a part of the program and figure out what I can do differently, for sure. I know I need to make some changes myself. And what do you guys need? What do you need as an organization? I mean, if there's something that you guys could tell our audience for support, what do you need?
Did you see my CFO right away? She's ready to answer that.
The CFO, yeah, she's ready to go. Yeah, Christy's ready to answer that. Yes.
Just awareness.
Okay.
It's not just about donations or money, but just bringing awareness and helping us reach those caregivers that so desperately need us, that don't even know they need us.
Yeah, you're right.
Yep. So I would say that we have this big bowl, and we need to fill it with dollar signs, but we also need to fill it with hearts.
Yes.
And that's something that's at the heart of this organization. And that's something we always look for in anyone that we bring in, volunteers, board members, anyone, is their heart condition. And we want to grow. One day, I'd love to see Gimme a Break in every neighborhood, so that every caregiver has a local Gimme a Break where they can get support and they can get community. And so anyone that wants to get involved, contact us. Let's do this. Let's cover America and cover the world with support for caregivers and not be so isolated. Caregiving should be a joy. I would love, in a perfect world, to see people breaking down the door to want to be the one that's a caregiver.
No,
Because
yeah,
I want to be the
agree.
caregiver, because then I can be part of Give Me a Break and I can get cool stuff, right? I can learn my life will be that much better. And
Yes.
so just really flipping that around would be the goal.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, let's do it then. Let's make sure we get the awareness out there and the financial support. And you're right, it does need to be in every town in America because there are caregivers everywhere. People are living to be older, and they're going to need help. And it works both ways. It works both ways. So
Yeah, that's in fact something that Christy had mentioned earlier. Was one of our real big focuses this year after our strategic planning meetings was that we wanted to put an emphasis on your care receiving plan. And no caregiver thinks about that. And that's why we end up where we are, because the one we're taking care of never had a full plan. And that plan is not just financial or, even having your will in place or your medical directive. It goes beyond that. Very personal. And we have a full checklist, and we're going to be doing a lot of presentations about that in our outreach this year, helping caregivers to really fully understand what a care receiving plan means.
I love that. I love that. And that just, that educates the caregiver as well as the person who will need a caregiver someday. So that's awesome. Well, thank you, ladies. I really appreciate you guys coming on the show. And I definitely want to get information. We're going to run that across the screen as well on how to get in contact with you guys and how to make donations as well. That is important. It takes money to run an organization. And you guys have a wonderful benefit of helping caregivers. I mean, everybody's gonna, it's like teachers, everybody goes through a teacher, and pretty much everybody's gonna come in contact with a caregiver at some point. So we definitely need to make sure you guys get the support that you need, and make sure everything is running smooth, and get the word out for sure. So how would we get in contact with you? What is your website, Savy?
So just type in GAB, give me a break, gab808.org.
Okay, wonderful, wonderful. Well, thank you, ladies, for coming on the show.
Thank you.
And I look forward to hearing more about your activities and your expo and your other summit for the caregivers to take a break as well. We'll post that as well. And thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. It's truly an honor, and it's been an honor meeting you as well. And thank you so much. And I want to just send a great big hug to every caregiver watching out there. Take your hand, put it on your shoulder, and give yourself an add a caregiver.
Yes.
Add
yes.
a caregiver.
Oh, that's so
and I
sweet.
send
That's
all
so
of that
sweet.
to all of you.
Oh, that's wonderful. I'm sure they're going to appreciate that too. So thank you so much. Well, thank you for tuning in for another episode of Creative Caregiving and Beyond. I know this has been very informative to me. I'm going to take it to heart. I'm going to definitely make some changes in my life for sure, and help us spread the word about Give Me a Break.